Hey everyone. Today we're going to walk in the sandals of a queen whose story has echoed through time, both glamorized and misunderstood. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, is often remembered for her love affairs with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But behind that popular image is a ruler fighting tooth and nail to protect her throne, her people, and the sovereignty of her crumbling empire against the most powerful force the ancient world had ever seen: Rome. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Wherever you are right now, whether you're by the Nile or on your couch in Nairobi, London, Manila, or New York, I want you to sit back, relax, and imagine this. Now, let's listen to the compelling story in this video of mine. You shuffle barefoot across the polished marble of the royal court. The sunlight cuts through the colored glass, casting Nile green hues onto the floor. You're just a child, but already the weight of your father's gaze presses down on your shoulders. Ptolemy XII, often mocked as Auletz, the flute player, isn't the strong pharaoh that people dream of. He's a puppet, his strings pulled by Rome's creditors, his crown nearly toppled by the debts he accumulates trying to hold Egypt together. Still, you're his daughter, Cleopatra, and even at 10 years old, you learn to listen more than speak. Greek is the tongue of the palace, but you're drawn to the streets. You study Egyptian. That makes you rare. Most of your Ptolemaic ancestors refused to speak the language of the people they ruled. But you, little one, aren't content to rule from a distance. You want to understand them. Your tutors don't treat you gently. Mathematics, rhetoric, astronomy, medicine, poetry, law, these aren't hobbies for you. They're weapons. Egypt is a kingdom sandwiched between greatness and extinction. You know it. Everyone does. You're not just preparing to rule a nation, you're preparing to fight to keep it from disappearing altogether. And there's danger even in the palace walls. Your siblings, 4 sisters and 2 brothers, aren't your allies. They're your rivals. Already the whispers in the shadows begin. Who will be favored? Who will be married off? Who will be assassinated? The court is a theater of masks, but yours is one of steel behind a golden smile. Your first memory of real chaos comes with exile. It's 58 BCE, and your father's rule collapses. The Alexandrians, furious over heavy Roman tribute and rising taxes, revolt. The streets fill with angry chants and broken statues. You watch from a hidden chamber as mobs burn symbols of your father's rule. Then he's gone, fled to Rome to beg the Senate for help. You follow, not to the city itself, but in spirit and rumor. Back in Egypt, your older sister Berenice IV seizes the throne. She's beautiful, cunning, and lethal. You know you're next if your father doesn't return. He does, but not alone. 3 years later, in 55 BCE, Ptolemy XII returns at the head of a Roman-backed army. Blood stains the temple stones as Roman swords make way for a puppet king. Berenice is dragged out, screaming, publicly executed. You're only around 14, but already you've learned the most important rule of royal survival. Never trust a sibling, never forget a betrayal, and never let Rome too close without a price. Your father's restoration comes at a terrible cost. Egypt's national treasures, the temples, the sacred lakes, even the gold from Isis's shrines, are melted, pawned, or sold to pay Rome back. You watch your father's health wither as his debts grow heavier. You begin to plan for a future without him, and that future arrives fast. By 51 BCE, you're 17, and your father lies dying. His will is clear. You are to rule with your younger brother Ptolemy XIII. He is barely 10 years old. But in this arrangement, you see the outlines of both opportunity and war. The throne isn't a chair, it's a battlefield. You sit next to your brother, co-ruler in title only, but in your heart, you know this game. Advisors buzz around him, whispering control. You, the elder, the female, are seen as a threat. But you've read too many histories not to see the trap forming. You make the first move. You begin putting your face on coins, alone. You cut your brother's name from official documents. You style yourself as Philopator, beloved of her father. Your image wears the sacred uraeus, the rearing cobra crown worn by true pharaohs. And in doing so, you make yourself a target. The advisors strike back quickly. By 48 BCE, you're exiled from Alexandria, cast out by your own court. You ride into the desert, not defeated, but calculating. You gather mercenaries, rally loyal generals. You camp outside the city like a lioness waiting for the gates to open. The moment comes with a ship and a name: Julius Caesar. Rome has sent its greatest general to sort out a brewing civil war, not between empires, but between you and your little brother. And this is where the tale that people think they know begins. But you know better. Love doesn't enter the story yet. This is about survival. This is about strategy. And you have one trick left to play: a carpet, a gamble, and the most dangerous man in the world. You lie there, curled like a serpent in soft wool, the scent of jasmine oil thick around you. The walls of the palace echo with the shuffle of sandals, the murmurs of Roman guards, the tension of a kingdom poised on the edge of war. This is your moment. You are 21, exiled from your throne, and about to take the biggest gamble of your life. Your allies carry the carpet, tight, heavy, regal, through the corridors of the royal palace in Alexandria. Outside, your brother's advisors believe they control the city, but they haven't counted on your audacity or the man waiting at the end of this hall. Julius Caesar, a titan in Roman politics and war. Caesar has just arrived to mediate the crisis between you and Ptolemy XIII. He expects squabbling children, a petty dispute he can smooth over in a few days. He doesn't expect you. As the fabric unfurls at his feet, you spill out like a vision from a dream. Dressed in fine linen, eyes lined in kohl, you rise gracefully from the folds of the carpet, kneel and lock eyes with the most powerful man in the known world. You don't beg, you don't flatter. You speak his language, literally and politically. You appeal to his hunger for legacy, for order, for prestige. Egypt is not just some eastern province, it is the breadbasket of the ancient world. Whoever controls the Nile controls the food that feeds Rome. And in you, Caesar sees something far more useful than a pawn. He sees a queen. That very night, the tide turns. You and Caesar become political allies, and soon after, something more. Your brother, furious, marches on the palace with his forces. Alexandria erupts into civil war. You stand beside Caesar, not just as a lover, but as a leader. Roman reinforcements arrive. The battle for Alexandria is brutal. Fires rage through the city. Your beloved Library of Alexandria burns, volumes of wisdom and memory lost to smoke. Still, you endure. In the chaos, your other sister, Arsinoe, tries to seize power, declaring herself queen and rallying troops to her cause. But it's not enough. Caesar's legions crush the rebellion. Ptolemy XIII flees and drowns in the Nile, his golden armor dragging him down like the weight of his own ambition. His corpse washes ashore like a ruined statue. You're not weeping. You return to the throne, but this time, you rule with Ptolemy XIV, your even younger brother. Officially, he's co-regent. Realistically, he's a shadow behind your rising star. To the people of Egypt, you are now pharaoh in every way that matters. You restore order. You fund repairs to temples. You issue proclamations with confidence and flair. And Rome watches. But behind the throne, life gets more complicated. You give birth to a son, Caesarion, Little Caesar. His father is never officially acknowledged by Rome, but everyone knows the truth. The boy is Caesar's blood, and with that comes both protection and danger. To consolidate power and erase future threats, you make a cold, calculated move. Your sister Arsinoe, captured and paraded in Caesar's Roman triumph, is quietly executed years later. Ordered by Mark Antony, yes, but suggested by you. Don't flinch. This is the cost of stability. You visit Rome in 46 BCE, an unprecedented journey for a foreign monarch. You stay in Caesar's villa outside the city. The senators gossip. The public watches you with awe, fear, and fascination. You're not just a queen, you're a spectacle. Some worship you as Isis incarnate. Others call you a seductress, a threat to Roman virtue. You attend banquets draped in gold. You discuss astronomy with scholars, economics with Caesar's aides. You're not playing court games. You're mapping out an empire. But Rome is a cage, no matter how gilded, and the knives are already being sharpened. March 15th, 44 BCE. You hear the news while preparing for the day. Caesar, stabbed 23 times on the floor of the Senate, assassinated by men who feared he would make himself king. Your protector, your lover, the father of your son, gone. You flee Rome with Caesarion, heart pounding, mind racing. Back in Alexandria, grief is a luxury you can't afford. With Caesar dead, alliances crumble. Enemies plot. You return to a court full of whispers and blades. Soon after, your younger brother Ptolemy Fortune, your symbolic co-ruler, dies mysteriously. Poison, most likely. Few mourn him. You crown your son in his place. Caesarion becomes co-regent. But he's just a boy. The weight of the kingdom still rests on your shoulders. And Rome? Rome is now a storm on the horizon. Three men have risen in Caesar's wake: Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus. They form the Second Triumvirate, and for now, they're busy hunting down Caesar's assassins. You watch. You wait. Because you know that eventually, they'll come east, and when they do, you'll need more than a throne. You'll need an empire's worth of cunning, and maybe one more ally. He's coming, and he'll bring both salvation and ruin. The sails appear on the horizon like a flock of white birds, bright against the endless blue of the Mediterranean. You stand at the harbor in Alexandria, your gold-threaded robe fluttering in the sea breeze as Mark Antony's ships close in. You already know this man by name, one of Caesar's most trusted generals, famous for his brawling strength, his sharp tongue, and his reputation for drinking wine like water. But what you need isn't the man history gossips about. You need the Roman with an army. It's 41 BCE. Julius Caesar is dead. The Second Triumvirate, Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, has defeated the assassins at Philippi. Now they divide the Roman world. Antony is given the east, and in the east sits Egypt, your Egypt. He summons you to meet him in Tarsus, a small city in Cilicia. But you don't go as a subject. No, you arrive as a goddess. Your ship glides up the Cydnus River, its stern gold, sails dyed purple, oars dipped in silver. Incense trails behind you. Musicians play flutes and lyres. You recline beneath a canopy of silk, dressed as Isis, the divine mother. The message is unmistakable. This isn't just a queen. This is living myth. Antony is captivated. He hosts a banquet, thinking he's going to impress you. But the tables are turned. You dazzle him with riddles, ancient stories, rare spices, and wine that doesn't stop flowing. The atmosphere is intoxicating, but underneath the flirtation is strategy. You're not there to seduce him. You're there to test him. Is he ambitious enough? Can he be manipulated? Can he be trusted? The answer, slowly, is yes. He follows you back to Alexandria, and for the first time since Caesar's death, your palace is filled with laughter. You play dice games until dawn, dress in costume for street escapades, and create your own drinking club, the Inimitable Livers. You indulge, yes, but every moment has an edge, because you know how quickly joy becomes war. While you feast and dance, Rome simmers. Octavian, Caesar's legal heir and Antony's co-ruler, watches with suspicion. The Senate gossips, has Antony fallen under the spell of a foreign queen? They don't know you the way he does. They don't understand that you're not casting spells, you're building alliances. Then comes a turning point. You give birth to twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. Rome barely has time to react before you bear Antony another child, Ptolemy Philadelphus. 3 children with a Roman general, 3 potential heirs. But not to Rome, to Egypt. That's your game. Antony eventually returns west to fulfill his duties. He marries Octavian's sister, Octavia, as a political gesture. You know what this means. It's not betrayal, it's Roman politics. But you don't forget it. And neither does Octavian. By 34 BCE, Antony is back in your arms. And not just as a lover, but as a partner in power. Together, you launch campaigns into Armenia, win battles, parade captives through the streets of Alexandria like Roman triumphs. The people cheer. The court blooms. You sit beside Antony on twin thrones in the donations of Alexandria, dividing the eastern territories among your children. It's unprecedented, and it's a direct slap in Rome's face. Octavian uses it as proof. Antony has gone native. He's no longer Roman. He wants to build a rival empire with a foreign queen. He's not entirely wrong. You and Antony are reimagining the world, East versus West, Alexandria versus Rome, goddess and god, ruling side by side. But while you build monuments and mint coins, Octavian builds propaganda. He accuses you of bewitching Antony, of manipulating him with sex and gold. He distributes fake wills that suggest Antony wants to be buried in Egypt, not Rome. The people of Rome, desperate for stability, begin to turn. You prepare for war. The navy is reinforced. Supplies are gathered. You personally oversee troop movements and intelligence reports. Gone is the laughing queen from the feasting halls. In her place is a strategist, a commander, a pharaoh who knows her kingdom may not survive another Roman war. Still, Antony underestimates Octavian. And you start to doubt him. He's growing erratic, drinking too much, trusting the wrong people. But you can't walk away now. You're tied to him by love, children, and ambition. You've thrown your lot in with a Roman, and not just any Roman, but the wrong one. So you plan a backup, Caesarion. Your son by Julius Caesar, true heir in your eyes to both Egypt and Rome. If all else fails, he must survive, he must inherit. And so you keep one hand on Antony's shoulder and the other on your son's back, ready to push him forward into history if fate allows. But fate doesn't deal in mercy. And the war you've both provoked is coming fast. Murder in the moonlight. The palace feels colder now. Not in temperature, but in tone. The laughter is quieter, the steps heavier. The war drums beat from far-off shores, but you feel them echo in your bones. You pace through the Hall of Osiris with a flickering lamp in hand, eyes scanning scrolls and maps, while servants whisper of legions assembling across the sea. Antony no longer smiles like he used to. He watches the horizon, haunted by a future he can't control. And you watch him. You know when a man is slipping. It's 32 BCE. Tensions with Rome are no longer a game of diplomacy. Octavian is preparing for war. The Senate, swayed by his speeches and Antony's erratic decisions, strips your lover of all powers. It's official. Rome has declared war, not just on Mark Antony, but on you, Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt. And just like that, it's not a Roman civil war anymore. It's East versus West. Antony begins to consolidate power in Alexandria. You pour your wealth into building the greatest fleet Egypt has ever seen. Dozens of ships, sleek, long, reinforced with bronze rams, begin to line the harbors. The desert echoes with marching feet. Soldiers train in the blistering heat, while engineers fit war machines to the hulls. Egypt is arming for its final hour. But there's another front you must fight, your own palace. You convene your inner circle. There's discontent, as always. Some nobles question your alignment with Antony. Others fear the might of Rome. But no one dares speak openly. You've ruled long enough to command fear as well as loyalty. Even those who hate you recognize your brilliance. You silence dissent with rewards. And, when needed, removal. And one of those removals comes tonight. You walk through the perfumed courtyard under the moonlight, your sandals silent on polished limestone. There, kneeling near the lotus pond, is your younger brother, Ptolemy XIV's only known child, a distant cousin with a suspicious Roman contact. You knew he was writing letters. You knew where those letters were going. You also knew that this was the price of ruling alone. Your guards step out from the shadows. You don't give the order aloud. You simply nod. One moment later, the would-be usurper is gone, dragged into the dark, never to be seen again. Was it cruel? Yes. But you remember Berenice. You remember Arsinoe. And you remember the drowned body of your brother in the Nile. Your dynasty is not built on mercy. It's built on survival. And survival always demands blood. The next day, you tour the harbor. Caesarion walks beside you, barely a teenager, but already being trained in law, war, and language. You point to the ships, their sails catching the wind like wings. You tell him, this is what it means to be pharaoh, not to rule in peace, but to prepare for the worst. He doesn't speak much, but he listens. And you know that's enough. Meanwhile, Antony hosts military councils. He's truly trying to mount a Roman defense, but the cracks in his discipline show. He's drinking too much, trusting commanders who whisper flattery, ignoring logistics in favor of bravado. You step in where you can, reallocating grain, negotiating with mercenary captains, even smuggling messages to potential Roman defectors. And yet, the question that keeps you awake isn't whether you'll win this war. It's whether he will lose it for both of you. One night, alone in the southern wing of the palace, you find a scroll hidden beneath a servant's tray. It's sealed with a Roman emblem, Octavian's eagle. A spy, clearly. You unroll it slowly. Inside is a simple message. Deliver Caesarion to Rome. We will let you live. He will rule as our client king. Antony is not your future. Rome is. You burn it, but you keep the ashes. Let them remind you. Octavian doesn't just want power. He wants you erased from history. Your children turned into puppets, your name turned to dust. And so, you double down. In the temple of Isis, you pray as pharaohs once did. You pour wine on the altar. You chant in ancient tongues. You dress not in royal silk, but in ceremonial linen, your body covered in the white of mourning. The gods are silent, but you are not. That night, you order the execution of 2 Roman envoys in Alexandria. They were caught trying to bribe your generals. Their heads are displayed on stakes outside the city walls. A message. This queen bows to no Caesar. Antony, meanwhile, slips further into paranoia. Reports say Octavian is preparing his navy for a decisive strike. The Battle of Actium looms. You try to reason with him to choose land battle, not sea. But he insists. He wants to fight Octavian his way. You sigh. And you prepare. Every decision now feels like the tightening of a noose. But you're not just waiting to die. You're calculating your last best move. And it will come not from love, but from fury. Rome's queen, Egypt's pharaoh. The Roman streets reek of sweat, wine, and fear when you step into them. You are far from home, yet all eyes are on you. It is 46 BCE, and Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in the Republic, parades through Rome in his greatest triumph. Behind him shuffle prisoners of war, Gallic chieftains, African kings, and your sister Arsinoe, stripped of royal dignity, shackled before a jeering crowd. But you are not among the captives. You ride quietly in a covered litter toward his estate outside the city, veiled from view, escorted by a personal guard. The cobblestones tremble with the echo of marching feet and the chants of a populace drunk on victory. Rome is wild with celebration. And you, Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt and mother of Caesar's only known child, arrive not as a subject, but as a storm. Rome has never seen anything like you. Inside Caesar's villa, away from the public roar, the tone shifts. Senators whisper. Nobles circle like hawks. You are given every luxury, tapestries from Greece, incense from Syria, Egyptian priests to perform your rites. Caesar spares nothing for your comfort. But don't mistake this for safety. You are a foreign monarch in the heart of a republic that despises kings. You walk carefully, speak softly, and observe everything. In the markets, your face appears on rare coins. In the forums, people argue about you like a myth. Isis, sorceress, queen. Children watch for your shadow in alleyways. Lovers invoke your name. Even as Caesar bathes you in affection, you know his position is fragile. The Senate resents him. The old aristocrats sneer at your presence, at your child, at the very idea of Egypt inside Rome's veins. And still, your influence grows. Your son Caesarion is not officially named heir, but Caesar keeps him close. He builds a golden statue of you as Isis in the temple of Venus Genitrix. He whispers of reshaping Rome, of moving the capital to Alexandria, of ruling not as consul but as a living god. That's when the knives begin to sharpen. March 15th, 44 BCE. The Ides. You feel it before it happens. A sudden stillness in the villa. The servants' movements become stiff. The air too quiet. Then running footsteps, then silence, then a scream. Caesar is dead, stabbed to death by senators in the theater of Pompey. Your protector, your lover, your son's father, gone. You don't cry. You pack. In the dead of night, you slip out of Rome with Caesarion and a small escort. You leave behind Caesar's ashes, the villa, the marble tributes. You return to Egypt not as a queen in love, but as a ruler in mourning. Back in Alexandria, you find the throne cold and splintered. Your co-regent, the young Ptolemy XIV, dead. Some say it was fever. Others say poison. You don't correct them. You place Caesarion beside you on the throne. He is your son. He is your shield. He is your claim. You waste no time. Temples are restored. Taxes are rebalanced. You send emissaries to the eastern cities, reminding them who protects their trade routes. You reinforce the Nile patrols, expand Alexandria's library funding, and demand oaths of loyalty from the regional governors. You are not merely a lover left behind. You are Pharaoh, and pharaohs do not kneel. Rome, meanwhile, begins to fracture. Caesar's assassins, Brutus and Cassius, try to take control. But new powers rise to crush them. The second triumvirate, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus. You watch from afar. You send gifts to each, letters laced with diplomacy and veiled threats. You bide your time. In private, you teach Caesarion about law, astronomy, and command. He learns Latin and Greek. You dress him in linen, but he wears a cobra crown. He is both Roman and Egyptian, and you ensure he knows what that means. At night, you still walk the palace halls, past rooms where you once laughed with Caesar. The marble is cool beneath your feet. The torchlight flickers on painted walls. You stop beneath a mural of the Nile goddess giving life to the land. And for a moment, you wonder what life would have been like if Caesar had lived. But dreams don't build empires. Steel does. You begin preparing your fleet. Not for war, yet, but for defense. You know Octavian will come calling one day, claiming legitimacy as Caesar's heir. And when he does, you'll have something better than blood. You'll have Caesar's son. But war doesn't arrive immediately. Instead, another man does. In 41 BCE, as Rome's triumvirs divide the empire, Mark Antony summons you to meet him in Tarsus. He wants tribute, ships, Gold, resources for his Parthian campaigns. He expects compliance. You give him a spectacle. You arrive not as a widow, but as a goddess reborn. Draped in purple, perfumed with frankincense, you float up the river like a vision of divine authority. Antony sees you and forgets what he came for. In that instant, the game begins again. But this time, the stakes are higher. You're not choosing love over empire. You're choosing love as empire. The message arrives wrapped in linen and sealed with wax. Rome has turned. You stare at the scroll for a long moment before breaking it open. Inside are the latest reports from your spies. Senators executed, Lepidus stripped of power, and Octavian consolidating Rome under his own banner. He calls himself the son of the divine Caesar now, a title both religious and strategic. With each passing moon, the republic you once tiptoed through becomes something else. Harder, colder, less a republic, and more an empire in all but name. And you? You're no longer welcome. The statues of Caesar's lovers in Rome are quietly removed. The cult of Venus Genetrix no longer invokes your name. The whispers grow louder. Cleopatra, the serpent of the Nile. Cleopatra, the witch queen. Cleopatra, corrupter of Rome's finest. It's not just slander, it's war in language. You watch Octavian's rise from across the sea, eyes sharp, mouth silent. Mark Antony still holds the East, and for now, that's your shield. But even Antony is changing. Letters arrive from his Roman wife, Octavia, pleading for his return, reminding him of duty. He answers with silence, because he's already back in Alexandria. The palace glows with color again. Banquets, poetry, musicians whose melodies drip like honey through marble halls. Antony is no longer simply your lover. He's your co-ruler, your military partner, your image mate on newly minted coins. Together, you proclaim your children rulers of Armenia, Libya, Syria, crowns given like prizes in a game you intend to win. The donations of Alexandria, they'll call it. But it isn't a donation. It's a declaration that you and Antony will define the East, not Rome. And that's when the daggers come out, not in alleys, not in temples, but in the forum. Octavian reads Antony's so-called will before the Roman Senate. Whether real or forged, it doesn't matter. He claims Antony wants to be buried in Egypt, that he's given Roman land to his children by a foreign queen, that he's lost to lust and luxury. The Roman people erupt. Octavian isn't just a soldier, he's a manipulator. With careful speeches, he turns public opinion. And when Antony officially divorces Octavia, Octavian's own sister, it's the final blow. Rome declares war, not on Antony, but on you. Let that sink in. They don't declare war on a Roman general. They declare war on Cleopatra, queen of Egypt. They frame you as the threat. You, not Antony, are the true enemy of Rome's soul. It's both flattering and terrifying, because if they fear you this much, they'll stop at nothing. In Alexandria, you don't waste time with tears. You gather your council, draw new defense lines, strengthen the harbor's walls. Your shipyards burn with activity, oars carved, sails stitched, weapons forged. You take personal command of supply lines, ration silver, and instruct your eldest son, Caesarion, to oversee inland grain stores. He protests at first. He wants to stay in the palace by your side. You shake your head. The palace may fall, you say, but the blood of Caesar must survive. And so the boy begins to learn what it truly means to be pharaoh. Antony, for all his valor, drifts. Some days he's a lion, barking orders, inspecting troops, drilling his officers. Other days, he lounges in your chambers, sipping date wine, mumbling about lost Roman honor. You still love him, but you don't trust him the way you once trusted Caesar. The campaign ahead will not be decided by passion. It will be decided by precision, and that's your strength. You forge alliances with Crete, Cyprus, and eastern cities still loyal to Antony. You oversee the training of the fleet, 500 ships, Egyptian hulls reinforced with iron, Roman triremes captured and retrofitted. You invent new signals for battle, smoke by day, flame by night. You even inspect the war chariots yourself, whispering commands to black Nubian horses with eyes full of fire. The people see you, not as a lover or a goddess, but as their commander. And they believe. Outside the palace, you visit the Serapum, praying to the god of knowledge and protection. You offer gold, incense, and a single strand of your hair, burned over sacred flame. Guard my children, you whisper, and blind my enemies. But the gods are as silent as ever. Reports arrive that Octavian's navy is approaching. You hold a final war council, One map stretched across the marble table, sea routes marked with obsidian pins. You suggest a defensive approach, lure Octavian into Egyptian waters where your navy holds the advantage. Antony disagrees. He wants to fight at sea, near Actium, to meet Octavian head-on in western Greece. You argue, loudly, behind closed doors. But in the end, you concede. It's a gamble, and you don't gamble lightly. That night, as Alexandria settles into uneasy quiet, you visit your children. Each sleeps in a separate chamber, guarded and serene. You watch their chests rise and fall, innocent of the war they've been born into. Then you return to your room, where Antony waits, half drunk, half lost. You kiss him. Not as a queen, not as pharaoh, but as a woman preparing for the storm. You close your eyes and say nothing, because soon the sea will speak for all of you. Antony's arrival in the east. The Ionian Sea spreads before you like a sheet of steel. Beneath your flagship, the water churns with the rhythm of hundreds of oars. You stand at the prow, wrapped in a blue cloak that catches the salt wind, your fingers tight around the rail. Antony's fleet is arrayed to your left, elegant, massive Roman ships bristling with marines and catapults. Your Egyptian vessels form the right wing, sleeker, faster, painted with the divine eyes of Horus on their bows. It is the summer of 31 BCE, and the world is tilting on its axis. For months, you've camped at Actium, a narrow strait off the western coast of Greece. The war that Octavian promised has arrived, but it doesn't look like a glorious campaign. It looks like a siege. Trapped between sea and swamp, disease eats through your camp. Food rots, morale sours. Rome's eastern allies begin to defect, quietly slipping away in the night. Desertions mount. Men stare across the water and wonder, why are we dying for a love story? But they don't know you. Not really. This isn't about love anymore. This is about empire. Antony grows more erratic. Some days he paces the shoreline, ranting about Caesar's ghost, mocking Octavian's boyish face. Other days he sinks into a silence so heavy it drags down everyone around him. You try to cut through the fog, issue new orders, demand discipline, but the cracks widen, and you feel it. The hour of choice approaching. You hold nightly meetings with your naval commanders. Together, you debate the impossible. Break the blockade and sail for Egypt, or stay and risk annihilation. You push for the breakout. You know the geography better. You know your navy can outrun Octavian's heavier ships. But Antony insists on holding position, hoping for some miracle reinforcement that never comes. One night, under a shroud of stars, you send a message to your own fleet. Prepare for independent retreat. If Antony falls apart, you will not. That's when the omens begin. A dust storm ravages the camp. A sacred ibis collapses dead on your altar. And your personal astrologer Demetrius tells you, the lion rises no more, but the serpent may yet shed its skin. You dismiss him, but his words stay curled around your heart. And then, September 2nd, the day of Actium. It begins with the clash of oars and horns. The strait roars with the sounds of war, sails snapping, men shouting, rams crashing against hulls. Antony commands the center. Your Egyptian fleet flanks the south. From the deck of your flagship, you bark orders to your captains, smoke stinging your eyes as ships burn and splinter around you. The wind favors Octavian. His admiral, Agrippa, strikes fast, pinning Antony's ships between the coast and his heavier fleet. Confusion spreads. Some of Antony's allies refuse to advance. Others panic and retreat. You see it happening in real time, the collapse. Then the signal comes. From Antony's flagship, a single torch lifted skyward. Retreat. The moment is chaos. You order your fleet to move, catching the wind with practiced precision. Dozens of your ships break south, slipping past the tightening Roman line. Your flagship glides like a knife through the chaos, smoke billowing behind. Fire arrows hiss through the air. You do not flinch. Antony follows. He boards your ship mid-escape, eyes wild, hands shaking. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. You see everything in his face. Defeat, guilt, shame. You don't embrace him. You don't have time. Behind you, the strait becomes a graveyard. You sail for Alexandria, faster than any Roman ship could follow. The journey is silence. Even your loyal captains avert their eyes. You've escaped. But everyone knows what was left behind. The east is lost. When you arrive at the palace, Alexandria greets you with confusion. Had you won? Had Rome been broken? You don't answer. You retreat into the inner sanctum. Antony disappears into his chambers, refusing visitors. Days pass, then weeks. Slowly, painfully, the truth spreads. Octavian has seized Greece. The war is not over, but it's close. You prepare for the worst. Your treasury is opened. You distribute gold to loyal allies, send jewels to foreign governors, offer bribes to distant legions. You write to the kings of Nubia, of Parthia, of India. You even consider offering Caesarion's hand in political marriage. But there are few buyers left. Rome is the rising sun, and you are standing in the dusk. Antony sinks deeper into despair. One night, you find him drunk in the war room, shattering a bust of Caesar with a sword. "He used me," he growls. "He used us all." You take the blade from his hand, and you begin to make your plan. You call the palace architects. Secret rooms are prepared beneath the temple of Isis. Vaults, escape tunnels, supply caches. Caesarion is moved to a hidden location outside the city, guarded by your most trusted men. You do not intend to surrender. But if Alexandria falls, you will vanish like smoke. Because even now, with everything crumbling, you are still a queen, and queens do not kneel. The golden seduction. You stand once again on the marble balcony of your Alexandrian palace, staring into a sun-drenched horizon that bleeds gold into the sea. Alexandria is still beautiful, still yours for now. But the city hums with unease. Traders whisper about lost legions. Priests stop mid-prayer to glance at Roman messengers. You feel the pulse of your empire weakening. And yet, Antony comes to you in the evening, face shaven, armor polished, wine in hand, like the man you first met in Tarsus. You remember that meeting well. Tarsus, the river Cydnus, the barge. You sailed in not as a supplicant, but as a goddess. The deck was scented with cinnamon and rose petals. Purple sails caught the sun. You reclined on a couch of gold, dressed as Isis herself, surrounded by musicians and dancers. Your crew rode slowly through the crowd of stunned Roman soldiers, none of whom had ever seen a queen arrive like this. It was calculated. It was dazzling. It was war by other means. And it worked. Antony, the conqueror of Gaul, the hero of the East, the most feared general in Rome, he laughed when he met you. Not because he thought you a fool, but because he was disarmed. You offered him not subservience, but partnership. Flirtation and philosophy, storytelling and strategy. You drank with him late into the night, and when he returned the next morning asking to see your library, you knew. He was already yours. Back then, Rome still whispered doubts. Cleopatra seduced Caesar. Now she tries Antony. But they missed the point. You didn't seduce Antony with beauty. You seduced him with vision. He wanted power. You offered empire. Together, you toured Egypt. You showed him the grain ships, the irrigation canals, the temples older than Rome itself. You brought him to Memphis, to Thebes, to the Valley of Kings, where the stone eyes of dead pharaohs seemed to gaze upon your alliance. He was in awe. In Alexandria, you hosted games in his honor. You gave him a golden breastplate crafted by Nubian smiths. You minted coins with your faces pressed side by side, equal rulers. And when winter came, he stayed. Rome gnashed its teeth, but Antony no longer cared. By 34 BCE, your alliance had bloomed into ambition. Together, you launched the donations of Alexandria. In front of a roaring crowd in the great theater, Antony declared Caesarion king of kings. Your other children rulers of Armenia, Libya, and Media. You were crowned queen of kings. It was more than ceremony. It was a message to Octavian. Rome would no longer dictate the future of the East. You would. But the Roman Senate bristled. Octavian fumed. The lines were drawn. And now, in the wake of Actium, all those grand declarations feel like ghosts. Still, Antony walks beside you like the war isn't lost. He trains soldiers in the courtyard, hosts feasts for Egyptian nobles, kisses you in public, laughs too loudly, boasts too long. You play along. You host religious ceremonies, appear before the people, remind them you are not only Pharaoh, but the living goddess Isis. Behind closed doors, however, you prepare for the end. And yet, the love is real, not perfect, not pure, but forged through war and crowned with mutual defiance. You and Antony are no longer young, but when he takes your hand in the quiet hours, when you study maps together by candlelight, there's something there stronger than passion, a recognition. Two lions, backs against the wall, choosing to die side by side. There is one final hope. In the southern courtyard, you receive a letter. It's from Herod of Judea, short, cautious, but useful. He offers intelligence. Octavian's fleet has paused off Crete. He's waiting out the winter. You might still have time to build a second resistance. You clutch the letter tightly. The treasury is not yet empty. You still have loyal captains. You call an emergency council with your surviving generals. Plans begin. Arms are distributed. Messages sent to Parthia again. Perhaps they'll support a second front? You refuse to fade. And you refuse to surrender Caesarion. At dawn, you walk alone through the temple of Isis. You light incense, kneel at the altar, press your forehead to the cool stone floor. You do not pray for victory. You pray for legacy. Whatever happens, you must not be forgotten. Later that night, Antony joins you in the throne room. You sit side by side beneath the gilded lotus columns. You sip wine from alabaster cups. The torchlight flickers off the mosaic tiles of a lion hunting a Roman eagle. Antony leans in, eyes soft with sadness. If I had listened to you at Actium, you shake your head. It was already too late. He nods. Then let it not be in vain. You share no vows. There is no ceremony. But something unspoken passes between you. A final mutual agreement. Live if you can. But if you must fall, fall like pharaohs. Fall like gods. A new Caesar in Rome. You hear his name more and more, whispered like an approaching storm. Gaius Octavius, now called Caesar Augustus by some, though the Senate has yet to bestow the title. To you, he's still that boy Caesar adopted from nowhere. But now the boy is a man, and the man is sharpening every blade he can find against you. You remember him in Rome, young, pale, watchful. He said little but saw everything. When Caesar was assassinated, he wept not as a son but as a politician. He didn't cry over the corpse, he claimed the name, and now he claims you as his enemy, not Antony. Shh, you. It begins with speeches. In the forum, Octavian points west and speaks of threats in the east, not just of Antony's betrayal, but your corruption. He says Rome is being ruled from Alexandria, that Antony has fallen under the spell of a foreign queen, that your gold is turning senators into traitors, that your womb, your perfume, your throne, everything you touch is an insult to Roman virtue. And you know what he's doing. He's redefining the war. It's no longer about power. It's about identity. Rome versus Egypt, civilization versus decadence, a chaste republic against a serpent queen and her eastern sorcery. You feel the sting of it, even in Alexandria. Roman merchants abandon your ports. Governors hesitate to respond to your messengers. Even allies within Antony's camp begin to question. Not his leadership, but yours. But you've faced this kind of venom before. You don your crown and travel down the Nile, inspecting your cities. You appear in Memphis, in Thebes, in Dendera, where priests greet you as the living Isis. You speak of loyalty, of strength, of a future free from Roman chains. The people listen. They still believe in you. But belief doesn't build armies. Back in Alexandria, the palace feels heavier. You and Antony meet nightly now with advisors and generals. Plans shift with every rumor. Parthia, perhaps. Arabia, maybe. Nubia, even. But Octavian is closing in. He marches methodically, winning allies, tightening borders, cutting supply lines, and then he strikes with something you never expected. A will. Forged or not, it leaks. Octavian reads it aloud to the Senate, and Rome erupts. In it, Antony allegedly admits his empire will belong to you and your children. He names Caesarion, not Octavian, as the true heir to Caesar's legacy. And worst of all, he asks to be buried in Egypt, not Rome. The chamber explodes in rage. Even those still loyal to Antony now shift uncomfortably. It's no longer a political crisis. It's a spiritual one. To the Romans, you and Antony have committed the ultimate betrayal. You've transferred Rome's soul to the east. You know what happens next before it's announced. War. Not against Antony. Against you. The Senate declares it. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, has become an enemy of Rome. It's brilliant. Octavian never had to declare civil war. Those are always messy, always unpopular. But a foreign war? A righteous war? That he can sell to the people, that he can march under with pride. And so, he begins assembling his fleet, over 500 warships, dozens of legions, veterans from Caesar's campaigns, and fresh blood from the Italian countryside. Even seasoned generals who once fought beside Antony now join Octavian, saying they want to liberate Antony from your spell. You're not surprised. You expected betrayal, but it burns all the same. In Alexandria, you prepare. You command your navy to be fortified at Actium, a narrow stretch of coast in western Greece. A bottleneck, defensible but dangerous. You oversee food storage, treasury division, and troop movement. You consult with mathematicians and astrologers. You consult Isis herself. And then you steel yourself. You watch Antony speak to the troops. His voice is fire. He still has that spark, that raw charisma. But something has changed. He speaks more of Rome than Egypt now, more of honor than of future. You wonder if, somewhere inside, he's already preparing to lose. One night, you sit beside him on the palace rooftop. Below you, Alexandria is lit with torches. The sea glimmers. You sip wine, but it tastes like salt and metal. Antony turns to you. If Octavian wins, he says quietly, what will you do? You look out to the horizon. I will not kneel. He nods. Then I will not ask you to. There is still love, still hope, but there is also a quiet agreement. This war may not be won, but it will be remembered, and you will not die begging. Your youngest children are sent east to Armenia, to safe houses guarded by men still loyal to your cause. Caesarion remains with you. He is 13 now. You teach him the old rites, the Egyptian tongue. You show him the tombs of kings and the scrolls of Ptolemaic science. You tell him he was born from Caesar's blood, and that he must never let Rome forget it. On your temple wall, artists begin carving your likeness, crowned, arms raised, holding the ankh and scepter. It's not vanity, it's strategy. You are already shaping the story of Cleopatra, the one the world will remember long after the battles are dust. One last whisper of danger arrives. Herod, your old ally in Judea, has switched sides. Of course he has. The wind has changed, but you are still facing it. You light incense and stand before your gods. If you must be a villain in Rome's tale, so be it, but they will not forget your name. The War of the Worlds begins. The harbor smells of salt and oil, and the wind carries with it whispers of destiny. From the sea walls of Alexandria, you watch ship after ship prepare to sail, galleys polished like mirrors, oars stretching like limbs, prows glinting with bronze lions and goddess heads. War isn't coming. War is here. Your ships slip into the Aegean like chess pieces, commanded by your admirals and shadowed by your spies. This war is not just fought with iron, but with information. Messages in code, alliances born in secret, double agents bought with both gold and wine. And still, you keep one eye on the sky, where the stars speak in riddles. You feel it in your bones. Actium will be the hinge of history. It's September, 34 BCE, and the world narrows to a curved bay on the coast of Greece. You and Antony have fortified the coastline, established supply depots, even constructed towers on land. He commands the legions, you command the treasury and the navy. And it's a massive navy. Over 200 ships, many of them huge, Egyptian-built quadriremes and quinquiremes, floating castles with archers, ballistae, siege weapons. You have the advantage in size and raw power. Octavian, however, has something else. Agrippa. Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, Octavian's admiral, is methodical, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. He knows the sea better than anyone alive. While you and Antony prepare for open battle, Agrippa cuts the supply lines behind your backs. Inland, Octavian's legions dig in, block roads, burn villages, and deny you access to fresh water. Disease creeps through the camp like a snake. Morale withers, and worse, so do loyalties. One night, an entire Roman squadron defects. Just rows away, you watch their sails swing and move toward Octavian's fleet. You clutch your cloak and say nothing. Antony curses the stars. You say nothing because you are calculating. You always are. If the tide turns here, you'll know it. You still have options, plans beyond the bay. You're not just playing this game for survival. You're playing it for legacy. Your ships are larger, but that becomes a weakness. They're too heavy for the narrow waters. Octavian's fleet is leaner, faster. His ships swarm like hornets, darting around your behemoths, setting them aflame, cutting ropes, jamming rudders. It's a swarm versus fortress strategy, and it begins to work. You're aboard your flagship, your own floating palace. You wear a bronze cuirass over linen, your hair bound tight, your hands unshaking as orders fly from your lips. Behind you, Caesarion is kept safe, watching the horizon but not the blood. As dawn breaks, battle explodes. The bay becomes a churning grave. Sails burn. Men scream. Oars shatter. You hear the sickening crunch of wood against hull as ships ram each other like bulls. Antony, ever the soldier, is on the water too. His own command vessel plunges into the thick of it, blades gleaming. You see him from afar, wild, beautiful, reckless, like the Rome he once served. But then it happens. A signal fire. You had agreed on it beforehand, a plan that if defeat became inevitable, you'd light the fire and retreat with your treasure fleet. The gold, the grain, the last of Egypt's wealth. Antony sees the fire and breaks. His ship turns from battle. Soldiers scream after him, begging him to stay. You follow him in your own ship, the flagship churning hard to the west. Some of your vessels obey, others hesitate, some never see the fire at all and fight to the death. When you look back, all you see is a trail of smoke and broken masts. It's not cowardice, it's strategy. You're preserving what you can, your life, your fleet, your prince. But to Rome, it's betrayal. Back in Alexandria, silence meets you. Not celebration, not mourning, just silence. Antony disappears into the palace, broken and bitter. He doesn't blame you aloud, but you hear it in the echo of his footsteps, the way his soldiers look at you, the nights he doesn't knock on your door. And you? You go to work. You meet with your court. You send diplomats to Nubia, to Bactria, even to the Arabian Peninsula. You begin building again. Ships, walls, stories. You prepare Alexandria like a coiled snake, ready to strike if needed. The days grow short, so do the odds. Octavian advances methodically, claiming Greece, then Asia Minor. Everywhere he goes, people greet him not as conqueror, but as liberator. That's the genius of his propaganda. He doesn't need to win every battle. He just needs to keep redefining the war. Soon, your territory is nothing but Egypt, and even within that, your options are narrowing. Then, you receive a message from Octavian himself, an offer. He will spare you if you kill Antony. You stare at the scroll for a long time, burn it. Then, for the first time in months, you go to Antony. He's thinner now, his face shadowed, his spirit flickering like a dying torch. But when you tell him what Octavian proposed, he actually laughs. Of course, he says, he would. And then he looks at you, the ghost of a grin on his lips. I wouldn't have blamed you. But you don't play Octavian's game. Not yet. Not like that. Because this war is not over, not while your heart still beats, not while Egypt still remembers who built its temples, who walked with gods, who outwitted Caesar and seduced Rome, not while the desert sun still rises over the Nile. You prepare for one final defense. Not for victory, but for legend. Battle at sea, betrayal on shore. The winds are restless in Alexandria, as if they too sense that the end is near. You walk the palace corridors with sand sticking to your sandals and salt on your lips. War has a taste, and you've learned to stomach it. Antony is quieter now, brooding over ledgers of lost troops and crumpled maps of campaigns that never reached their glory. He no longer talks of victory, only loyalty, who has stayed, who has fled, who might yet betray you. And you? You still have one hand on your dagger, the other on your son. Your fleet is gone. Your generals whisper of surrender. And outside the walls of Alexandria, Octavian's legions begin to arrive, like an iron tide that doesn't recede. You know this is the final act, so you script it yourself. You reinforce the city's walls. You empty your treasuries into bribes and promises. You arm palace servants, send your trusted handmaidens to secure escape tunnels, and hide your royal archives under layers of brick and illusion. If they take your city, they will not take your story. You host one last banquet. Antony insists because Romans always feasted before the end. Wine flows like the Nile in spring, roasted oxen and honeyed figs, dancing girls and old legion songs. It's a strange thing to toast the world as it burns. Your son watches you both from a corner, wide-eyed and silent. He's growing fast now, too fast. When the final toast is made, Antony lifts his goblet and smiles. To Cleopatra, he says, the only pharaoh who ever ruled my heart. You smile back, though your hands are shaking under the table. The next morning, a scout rushes in. They've breached the gates. You don't scream. You don't cry. You turn to your son and tell him to go where you told them to take him, through the tunnel beneath the city, into the secret sands of the desert. Live like a prince, you whisper, or die like a king. And then you take up your crown. Antony arms himself. He walks to the battlements, cape trailing behind him like the ghost of Rome. He rallies what few soldiers remain. He makes speeches. He promises that this is not the end. But it is. One of your last trusted allies rides in and throws himself at your feet. Cleopatra, he gasps. Octavian has already taken the harbor. Your navy, what remains of it, has defected. Defected. The word shatters something inside you. You can't look at Antony. Not yet. You go to your shrine instead, to Isis, your patron goddess. You kneel. You whisper prayers. You ask nothing for yourself, only for your child. If there are still gods in Egypt, now is the time for them to wake. By nightfall, the palace trembles under siege. You move through the halls as if underwater, mosaics cracked, torches flickering. The world has narrowed to bricks and blades. And then the moment comes. A soldier stumbles in, bloodied and gasping. He speaks fast, too fast. But you understand. Cleopatra, she's dead. What? The soldier repeats the lie. He swears it. He was told by a spy. He heard the screams. The queen is dead. You know this trick. It's ancient. It's poison meant for the heart. But Antony believes it, and his heart was always a soldier's. You run through the palace as fast as your legs can carry you, past the colonnades, past the garden, through the southern corridor. He's already falling by the time you reach him. Antony lies in a pool of red. His blade is still buried in his side, but not deep enough to kill swiftly. His breath comes in rattles. He sees you and tries to rise. Cleopatra, you're alive? You fall to your knees, cradle his head. Why, Antony? You whisper. Because, he gasps, what is left without you? You call for servants. You scream for salves, for wine, for help. But deep down, you know, he's dying. You carry him with the help of guards to the mausoleum you've prepared, a monument to both your love and your end. As he lies on the stone, gazing at the ceiling painted with stars, he speaks one last time. Don't let Rome have you. And then, silence. You bury him like a king, with rites whispered in both Egyptian and Latin. No tears. Not yet. You dress in mourning robes. But your face is stone. Octavian sends a message. Surrender. There will be mercy. You don't reply. Instead, you walk your halls one last time. You touch the papyrus rolls you wrote, the art you commissioned, the throne where your child once sat beside you. You gather what dignity remains. Then you lock yourself inside your tomb. Not as a prisoner, but as a queen. You prepare your poisons. Some believe you had an asp smuggled in a basket of figs. Others say it was a concoction brewed by temple priests, so swift and silent that even the gods would not notice you slipping away. You test them on your handmaidens, faithful to the end. And when it's done, when everything is in place, you sit between two burning torches, crown upon your head, golden bangles on your wrists, eyes lined in coal. You are Cleopatra, last pharaoh of Egypt. You do not scream. You do not beg. You simply fade. As the gates are battered open behind you, your pulse slows, your breath halts, and history begins to twist around your legend. You wake up to the stench of smoke. The mausoleum is quiet, too quiet. Torchlight dances across the stone walls, casting eerie shadows of jackals and cobras painted from another life. You're not sure how long it's been since you collapsed next to Antony's body, his blood still darkening the folds of your robe. Except you didn't die. Not yet. Because Octavian's men are pounding at the iron door. The news of your suicide attempt has reached him, and it panicked him more than any battle ever did. He knows that if you die, you'll become a symbol, a martyr, a tale far larger than he can control. He wants you alive, not out of mercy, but conquest. A living Cleopatra can be paraded through Rome, proof that the empire crushed the last pharaoh. But you're not going to give him that satisfaction. The door groans. Light floods in. You squint, momentarily blind. Soldiers rush in, blades drawn. And then you feel the cold steel on your wrists. You're dragged out of your tomb like some stolen relic. They don't know what to do with you. Your spirit has already half crossed the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. But your body remains, and Octavian knows the optics are everything now. They take you back to your palace, under guard. The throne room smells of mildew and defeat. You're dressed in clean robes, but they're not yours. Your headdress is gone, your coal smeared. You're no longer a goddess, just a prisoner. Octavian arrives 2 days later. He enters with the confidence of a man who has already written your fate, young, composed, with eyes like winter marble. He bows, shallowly, enough to be polite, not enough to be humble. You say nothing. He sits. So, he begins, this is how Egypt ends? You stare at him. This is how you think it ends, you reply. He gives a tight smile. You'll be taken to Rome. You'll live, and your son, Caesarion, will be well treated, but only if you comply. Your heart clenches. Caesarion, you've heard whispers that he never made it to safety, that Octavian already has agents hunting him down, that Egypt's golden child, the son of Caesar, is a threat too great to let live. You say nothing. Do you understand, Octavian says, that there is no empire left for you to rule? And that's when you do the one thing he didn't expect. You laugh. It's soft at first. Dry, bitter, but it builds, because for all his cleverness, he still doesn't understand. Empires fall, statues crumble, armies scatter, but stories, they live forever. You are not just Cleopatra anymore. You are legend. He sees the fire in your eyes and changes tone. You have 3 days, he says. Make peace with what's left. Then he leaves. 3 days. You spend them in your garden, walking barefoot among the myrrh trees, the date palms, the lilies once gifted from Cush. You whisper to the statues of Isis and Bastet. You write letters to your allies, to your enemies, to the historians yet to be born. You eat very little. You sleep even less. You think of your ancestors, of Hatshepsut, who built temples that bent the sun, of Thutmose, who conquered foreign lands, of your father, who gave you chaos and a crown. And then you think of your son, your beautiful boy, born of two worlds, raised in halls of marble and sand. You know what Octavian plans. Even if Caesarion survives, he'll never rule. Octavian needs Rome to forget Caesar ever had a child. The future belongs to Augustus, not to heirs of Egyptian blood. You've spent your whole life fighting for the throne. Now, in your last breath, you fight to preserve something greater, your truth. So on the third night, you return to your tomb. The guards are drowsy. You've bribed them well. Inside, it's as you left it. Stone, dust, the scent of death already clinging to the air. You're not alone. Your two handmaidens are with you, faithful to the last. You prepare the final rites. You apply fresh coal. You wear the royal white linen, gold thread shimmering like moonlight. You whisper prayers to Osiris, Anubis, and the spirits that guard the Nile. And then, your handmaid brings the basket. The figs are fresh. Nestled inside is a single coiled asp. Some say you hesitated. Others say you smiled. You offer your wrist. The bite is quick, the pain sharp. As your limbs begin to numb, you sink onto your throne of stone, eyes closing to a vision of a river you were born beside and will now return to. When Octavian's men find you, it's too late. Cleopatra is dead. But the world won't forget. Your mausoleum becomes a shrine. Poets in Rome write verses about your beauty, your cunning, your downfall. Egyptians carve your name in secret places. Centuries later, your story is reimagined again, and a villain, lover, queen, sorceress, but they never call you weak. Never. Because to the very end, you chose your fate, and that is power. Your body lies cold, but your presence still lingers. In every hall, in every chamber of the palace now occupied by foreign boots. The gossip spreads before the sun rises. Cleopatra is dead. And just like that, Alexandria falls silent. Octavian doesn't smile when he hears the news. He nods, says nothing, and orders the guards to seal the mausoleum. The last queen of Egypt is to be buried with her lover, Antony, as she requested. It is not kindness. It is calculation. There will be no grand funeral, no procession, just a tomb and silence. But Cleopatra never wanted a martyr's death. She wanted a legacy, so you planned for it, even beyond the grave. In the final days of your life, you worked behind layers of whispers and silk. You weren't preparing for rescue. You were preparing to turn death itself into your final political move. The gambit? Outliving your empire with memory. Making sure your death became more than an end. It became a beginning. Your agents, loyal to you even now, disperse through the city like shadows. Copies of your last will, sealed and marked, are handed to Alexandrian scholars, temple scribes, even a few Roman sympathizers who once drank your wine and bathed in your fountains. You give them no gold, only a story. It is a gamble, but when you've lost a kingdom, it's the only thing left to play. Octavian, meanwhile, makes his way through Alexandria like a man reviewing spoils. He steps into your library, what's left of it, and eyes the scrolls. Thousands are gone, some burnt, some hidden. A few you had smuggled out to distant libraries in Asia Minor and southern Egypt. You knew Octavian would want the books, not for learning, for erasure. He walks the corridors of your palace and sees rooms empty of laughter. The guards mutter that it feels like a tomb, but he orders the looting to begin. Egypt is his now, and your death is his victory, or so he thinks. But your son still lingers in his mind like a threat. Caesarion, the boy born of gods and ambition. They catch him just south of Thebes. He's only 17. He never had a chance. Octavian makes the decision swiftly, quietly. No public execution, no fanfare. Just a final cut to sever the last claim to Caesar's bloodline. When it's done, Octavian says to his advisors, 2 Caesars is one too many. And with that, Egypt, real Egypt, dies. No more pharaohs, no more divine queens. The Ptolemaic dynasty ends not with a revolt, not with an army, but with a whisper and a knife. But you are not gone, because the empire you ruled was always more than territory. It was belief, it was image, It was strategy and stagecraft and myth. Your likeness remains on the coins minted in your name. Your portraits, painted with your almond eyes, your hooked nose, your fierce brow, still decorate the walls of temples. And every time someone speaks your name, they revive something that Octavian could never bury. In Rome, he returns not as general, but as Augustus, first emperor of a new Rome. And yet his triumph parade includes images of you. Not alive, not in chains, but dead, laid in a golden tomb, your asp posed beside you. He thought he was humiliating you. He didn't realize he was canonizing you. In death, you became eternal. From temples in Nubia to markets in Gaul, travelers tell your story. Some say you seduced gods. Some say you could summon storms with your voice. Some even whisper that you lived and that you wait entombed beneath the Nile for a time when Egypt can rise again. You planned that too. You made your myth immortal. You did it for your people, for your country, and yes, perhaps for your pride, but also for the generations yet unborn who would look back at your name and wonder, was she really just a lover, a pawn between great men, or was she something more? You know the answer. Because you weren't merely in love, you weren't merely in power. You were the last pharaoh, the child of Isis, the lioness of the Nile. And even as Rome roared in victory, even as your statues were pulled from their pedestals, your story refused to drown. In the centuries to come, playwrights and poets would cast you in their tragedies. Painters would immortalize your death again and again, sometimes with the asp, sometimes with the dagger, always in silk. But no one could agree who you really were. That was your greatest magic. You left them guessing. You lie in state, though there is no state left to rule. The asp, coiled in legend, becomes a symbol, not just of your death, but of the mystery that clings to you like your favorite perfume, lotus and myrrh, still lingering in the folds of your linen robe. No one really knows how you died. The Romans say it was a snake bite, hidden in a basket of figs. Some whisper it was poison, rubbed into a hairpin or painted onto your lips. Others insist it was a blade you drove into your own side, quietly, quickly, before Octavian's men could stop you. You planned it to be unknowable, because you understood something that Rome never could. Ambiguity is power. Mystery breeds myth, and myth survives conquest. Octavian wanted your death to be the end of an era, but instead it became the beginning of a legend. They buried you in a tomb beside Antony. He, the Roman general who loved a queen more than he loved empire. And you, the queen who chose to die on your own terms rather than be paraded through Rome in chains. Your final act wasn't just death, it was refusal. A refusal to be humiliated, to be redefined by men who wanted to own your story. That refusal echoes louder than 1,000 trumpets. Rome changes, empires rise and fall, but your tomb remains undiscovered. Archaeologists dig and speculate, scanning ancient walls and royal ruins near Taposiris Magna. Some say the tomb was underwater, others believe it was destroyed. But you might be watching even now, laughing softly from the shadows of time. And the world keeps asking, what really happened? Was it love that drove you? Or ambition? Did you care for Caesar? For Antony? Or were they both pieces on your chessboard, wielded like daggers in the dark? Was Cleopatra the seductress? The strategist? The sovereign? Yes, you were all of those things. And none of them entirely. You were not Rome's fantasy, not Shakespeare's tragedy, not Hollywood's caricature. You were Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, ruler of the richest empire in the Mediterranean, trained from childhood in 10 languages, advanced sciences, military tactics, and sacred rites. A queen fluent in politics and poison, a woman whose intellect could match Caesar and whose charisma could outshine Antony's bravado. You didn't need magic. You were the magic. Even in defeat, your influence rippled outward. Alexandria remained a cultural lighthouse. Its philosophers and architects, taught under your patronage, would influence Roman law, medicine, and thought. The books saved from the burning library found their way into other hands, sowing seeds that would later blossom into revolutions of knowledge. And your memory? It split into many faces. To the Romans, you were a cautionary tale. To the Egyptians, you were a martyr queen. To women across centuries, you became an icon of dangerous intelligence. You left behind no kingdom, but you left a worldview, a vision of power that didn't rely on muscle or might, but on identity, charm, calculation. A new kind of empire, invisible and seductive, written not on stone but in story. Rome would rule for centuries, but it would never birth another Cleopatra. And what of your children? Only one survives. Your daughter by Antony, Cleopatra Selene, is taken to Rome, raised not in chains, but in silence. She marries into a royal family in Mauritania and becomes a queen in her own right, ruling with the poise and precision of her mother. You may be gone, but your blood still sits on a throne. And your name? It travels farther than your ships ever did. Across deserts, through manuscripts, into textbooks and temples and tales. You become a queen of imagination, a queen of resistance, a queen whose final decision wasn't love over empire, but a reclamation of agency. You didn't choose love over power. You made love your power. And when Rome tried to reduce you to a conquest, you turned their triumph into a shrine to your own mythology. To this day, we search for you, not just your body, but your truth. And maybe we never find it. Maybe that's exactly what you wanted. Because in every corner of the world where people whisper your name, in every language that bends itself around Cleopatra, you live, you rule, you endure. Dust coats the edges of scrolls as another archaeologist brushes gently at the earth, eyes scanning for a glimpse of you. A ring, a carving, a hidden chamber sealed behind centuries of silence. But your tomb remains undiscovered, as if Egypt herself refuses to give you up. And maybe she shouldn't. Because you, Cleopatra, were never meant to be just a queen preserved in limestone. You were meant to be a question, a mirror, a fire that flickers across time. Rome has long fallen. The marble statues crumbled, the Colosseum a skeleton of spectacle. The emperors who tried to write you out of history now lie forgotten. And yet, school children still say your name with wonder. Painters still try to capture your gaze. And leaders, men and women alike, still invoke your legacy, hoping some of your brilliance will rub off. You lived your life like a game of chess, played underwater, moves obscured, goals layered. Even now, historians debate your intentions. Was Caesar your path to power, or something deeper? Was Antony your shield, or your downfall? Or did you simply use them both, not as lovers, but as ladders? You blurred the line between seduction and sovereignty, and that was your revolution. Your femininity was not weakness, it was armor, strategy, language. In a world dominated by Roman generals and Greek philosophers, you dared to rule with perfume and science, with theater and intellect. You turned politics into performance, and the performance into legacy. You weren't loved because you were beautiful. You were remembered because you were dangerous. And in the final moments of your life, you stared down Rome and made a choice: to own your ending, to rewrite defeat into drama, to vanish on your terms, not theirs. That's what still stings Octavian's heirs. That even with your body cold, your name grew louder. They painted you as a harlot queen, a foolish woman undone by lust. But every time someone tries to flatten you into a footnote, your full figure rises again, proud, brilliant, tragic, triumphant. The truth is, Cleopatra, you were never just a love story. You were a war, a warning, a wildfire in silk. And while empires may rise and fall with armies, it is stories that endure. Your story did not end in that tomb beside Antony. It stretched outward, into scrolls, into ink, into cinema, into memory. You became a cipher, a test, a woman both worshipped and weaponized, never fully known, yet never forgotten. And now, here in the present, someone watches a screen, hears your name, sees your face, and wonders, who was she, really? And in that question, your power flares once more. You are the echo behind every woman who refuses to be simplified, the whisper behind every leader who mixes cunning with charisma, the shadow behind every myth that refuses to die. You made your choice, not to surrender, not to grovel, but to exit the stage in flame, in silk, in silence. That silence still speaks, and we still listen. Final cooldown, approx 300 words. So now you know the story. The queen who ruled with words sharper than swords, who matched Caesar, defied Rome, and outlived her enemies. Not with armies, but with memory. You walked with her through marble halls and torch-lit tombs. You watched her charm the greatest men of her age and still refused to bow. You felt the sting of loss, the weight of strategy, the pull of love, and the courage of sacrifice. Cleopatra wasn't perfect. She wasn't a goddess. But she was something even more enduring. A master of image, a survivor of storms, the last sovereign flame of an ancient world. And in the end, she did not choose love over empire. She chose how she would be remembered. That, in the deepest truth, is her real power. If you've made it this far, thank you for taking the journey with me. These history stories aren't just about the past. They're about us, about how we choose to live, rule, love, and defy. So if you enjoyed this, don't forget, like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Drop a comment with your favorite part of Cleopatra's story, or tell me who you want to hear about next. Wherever you are, whatever time it is. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, history always has another layer beneath the sand. Finish the script, enjoy listening, and subscribe to the channel for the next video.